Hello students, before we study about nutrient cycling, that is the fourth aspect of ecosystem, we are going to study what are ecological pyramids. I hope you remember what were trophic levels in an ecosystem. There were the various levels at which we studied consumers, herbivores and carnivores, accordingly producers. They were kept under one level. That was the trophic level in an ecosystem. So now what we are going to study is that how those trophic levels, that how the trophical composition of an ecosystem can be represented, that is with the help of an ecological pyramid. So the question that comes in mind, what is the need of having ecological pyramid, and then there would be an understanding that what is an ecological pyramid. So for that you need to understand that an ecosystem has a trophic composition. That means the standing crop which is present at each trophic level. Supposedly I am talking about producers. So in an ecosystem, producers occupy a trophic level, there would be a standing crop. Supposedly, again I am taking numbers. So if there are 1 million producers in a given ecosystem, over here 1 million would specify that I am taking a large ecosystem, 1 million of producers are there, that would tell the standing crop of this trophic level that happens to be of the producers. Now on these producers there would be consumers which would be dependent, and supposedly they happen to be 50,000. So I am talking about numbers over here and I am considering each trophic level. When I represent this trophical composition of an ecosystem according to the trophic levels in a way that it represents a pyramid sort of structure. Now it won't represent the pyramids actually, but it would appear like one, that the basal part would represent one trophic level. Above that I would show another trophic level. Over that there would be another trophic level. So in a way I am representing the number or biomass or energy at various trophic levels in an ecosystem. So what happens to be an ecological pyramid? It is the trophical representation, trophic level representation by drawing a comparison between each trophic level. Please understand that it is a comparison that is to be drawn. Supposedly I have 200 units over here, let it be any trophic level, 200 units over here, then I would compare it with this and make the number in the next trophic level, which would be around 100 supposedly, and over here there would be 70. So I am making a comparative trophical composition record or representation over here, which is known as ecological pyramid. I hope I am clear that why do we make ecological pyramids, that at least we do get an idea about the standing crop for each trophic level. Now when we did standing crop and standing state of a trophic level, we talked about the biomass which is present over there in each trophic level. When I talk about trophic level, it is the passage of energy that we are talking about, that there would be few producers which would be producing food, there would be consumers which would be dependent on those producers for food. So in a way food web is being maintained and a trophic level is considered in which the entire standing crop is to be considered as well. Now we need to know that there is a way of representing each trophic level. Likewise, I can represent a trophic level in three ways. First of all, as we took in the example, it was in the case of numbers, that I can talk about number of organisms in each trophic level. That would be ecological pyramid of numbers. We will discuss it, but before that you need to know the types or the ways in which we can represent the standing crops in a trophic level. First one being the numbers. Second is energy. If I am talking about how much energy is being produced in each trophic level, that would be represented, a comparative account would be represented in the form of ecological pyramid of energy. And third one is pyramid of biomass. Now this entire concept is of basic understanding that there are three ways of making an ecological pyramid that happens to be in terms of numbers at each trophic level, the energy that is being produced at each trophic level. Of course there would be exchange, but here only we take comparative account, nothing else. And last one would be that in terms of biomass. So supposedly I'm talking about the ecological pyramid of numbers. So I'll have those same trophic level. There would be producers, there would be consumers, primary consumers, there would be tertiary consumers. Supposedly you are considering a small field. Take for example, you're having field ecosystem. So the producers would certainly be the crops. Okay. So these crops, supposedly I have 20,000 crop plants in a given field. On those, there would be few primary consumers which would be thriving on this primary producers. Producers are always primary. So the producer level has produced, this trophic level has produced 20,000 organisms, that is in terms of number. Now supposedly few dietarians and insects are feeding on it, which happen to be around 10,000. So I am considering number over here in terms of primary consumers. Now consider on these 10,000 insects, around 5,000 rodents are feeding. So these would be secondary consumers. So you see the comparative account is being made in terms of number at each trophic level, and on these rodents, the tertiary consumer that is feeding, consider it as snakes. There are around 200 snakes which are feeding. So this happens to be the number of crop plants. These are insects which feed on that. Then we have the rodents which are feeding on these insects, and then we have snakes. So you get to understand the composition of an ecosystem in terms of number. So we have ecological pyramid of numbers. Now supposedly I have to talk about the pyramid of energy. Let's take biomass first before going to this. I'm going to take similar example, the same one, but this time we are not going to consider it in terms of number. Here we are going to consider it in terms of biomass. Biomass, how it is measured? It is measured in terms of the product, ultimate product, which would be in terms of tonnage, of course. So supposedly consider the weight per metric cube. It is 1000 kilograms. Then we have 200 kilograms. It is kg per metric cube I am considering. We considered biomass in terms of this unit. Then we have 100. And over here we have 20. So this would represent the biomass, mass and living mass as we talk about. So the biomass is represented in this way. Again, this is a comparative account. And last one happens to be energy. We did talk about energy earlier, energy flow. We did talk about 10% law. That is a given case. We cannot change it because thermodynamics is a sort of given law where we do not consider any change, that whenever the energy has to pass from one level to other level, it will be passed on, but it would be dissipated. Randomness would come over here. So supposedly I had 10,000 joules of energy which is being produced at the lowest level, because this particular level of producers, it is able to utilize the solar energy directly. So it is going to make 10,000 joules of energy. Now as per 10% law, the next level is going to get, or it is going to produce the standing crop which would have only 10% of this energy. So 10% of this energy would be 100 joules, would move further. Alright, then when we go to higher level, it would be 10% of 100, that would be 10 joules, and the topmost one would have 0.1 joule only. Sorry, it would be 1 joule. So you see, we have a pyramid of energy as well. Now what you need to learn this thing and understand properly, that both the pyramids in case of numbers and in case of biomass can not always be upright. You understand what is an upright pyramid? Like supposedly I am having the base part being the broadest, and how a pyramid looks like actually. The triangular shape I am talking about. So this is an upright pyramid. We do have cases of inverted pyramids as well, where the topmost trophic level occupies largest band. It's not a band, it's a sort of, ecological representation, where the slide is the longest one. Then we have lower and lower. So the lowest level, that would be of the producers, the number would be limited. So I can take example of a banyan tree over here. The banyan tree would be single. Over it you would find many birds and insects which would be thriving on it. Then we'll have birds, and then we'll have yet larger number of snakes and the rest things which can grow over it. This is not an absolute case of representation, but for understanding I'm telling you that in cases of biomass and in cases of numbers, you can have inverted pyramids as well. When we talk about inverted pyramids in terms of biomass, we take aquatic ecosystems for representation. That in cases of a pond ecosystem, you would find a few phytoplanktons which would be primary producers, and a large army of zooplanktons which would be feeding on these phytoplankton. So in a way you get the producers occupying a smaller biomass unit as compared to the primary consumers, which are much larger in number. Suppose there are 100 producers, there are 10,000 consumers which are dependent on these. So this shows an inverted pyramid in case of biomass, in case of a pond ecosystem. Such is the case in the case of numbers, as we considered the banyan tree for an example. It can act as an ecosystem, but in case of energy, it can never be inverted. So one thing that you get to learn over here, that the pyramid could be upright, it could be inverted, but an energy pyramid is always going to be upright because of the 10% law. So these are the ecological pyramids that we talked about. They are the representation of various trophic levels, and it is a comparative account to understand the energy flow and the composition of an ecosystem. Thank you.